I'm Mark Robertson, back with you on my site, Carrying Lawn Chairs. It's named after my book, Carrying Lawn Chairs, Youth Sports and Other Parental Mindsets. And as I mention each time, the book is divided into two parts. The first part deals with all the problems I have with organized youth sports for kids. I'm against organized youth sports for kids 12 and under. Let them play pickup games. That's where they have fun. They don't enjoy organized youth sports. It is treating them as little adults. They're not little adults. Putting them on baseball fields in uniforms and fans in the crowd yelling, parents screaming at their kids. This is dysfunctional, and it sounds good, it looks good, it's Americana, but I'm against it. Let them play pickup games. That's where they have fun. That's where they really learn how to play and decide if they want to pursue it any further. But no, parents today, we got to get them started young. That comes from parents feeling a lack of self-worth on their part. And that are the points in the first part of the book and other points as well. The second part, I talked about all sorts of other things related to young people and the things they face these days and the things aimed at them that bring them great harm, including government schools, drugs, promiscuity, all sorts of perversion as well. And so they've got a lot of things to overcome. And that leads us to what we're going to talk about today. Innocence Lost. There are so many attacks on the innocence of children from every angle these days. And it's wherever you see it, everywhere. Of course, the media, the phones, even regular television, movies, even parental abuse, and so many other, like schools. You go to schools, you learn craziness. They push perversion at you at kindergarten because they want to get you indoctrinated and more easily enslaved by Marxists want to do this. This is about breaking up the family as well. That's why you hear horror stories about kids in school thinking they're the opposite sex, and then they don't want to tell the parents they're going to butcher them up and drug them. I mean, it's insanity what is happening to children these days, and they lose their innocence so early, and it's so awful, and it's so harmful to the children. I'm Catholic, and I also often attend First Communions, and you look at these little children, they're in second grade, they're all holy, holding their hands in a prayerful way, and the girls are dressed in their white with their veils, and the guys are dressed in suits usually, and it's just a great day. It's just near total innocence. And you ask yourselves, how do they lose that innocence? They get 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. A lot of them, even after 8th grade or high school, they don't even go to church anymore. But at that age, it's everything to them. And it's the same way with children. Children are born with awe and wonder of the world. Everything is new. And they look at it, and everything they absorb. So even at a very young age, they can absorb negative things. Like if a parent tells a 1-year-old, if they are kind of sarcastic at them and or whatever, they'll pick that up right there. So right there, they're losing some innocence. And let them keep their innocence for as long as possible. There are so many ways they're going to lose innocence as well, but ideally, we could keep this innocence throughout our adulthood. But people, that's not practical. We got to get them going young. They got to learn that this world's a tough, cruel place. Well, yes, it's a challenging place, but we have God to help us along. And there are so many great things that people see, and kids are so happy and so excited to see things, and they so love their parents. That's the only thing they know, and so many often parents rebuke that love, and that they start to squash them, and they lose their innocence. They lose the love of life, and you wonder why kids get depressed and things like that. But they lose their innocence in so many ways. They're attacked. A lot of it by design, a lot of it for profit. Look at these people. We talked about transgender. I mean, there is a mindset in this world of some people that a child is born in the wrong body. That is total evil and insanity. It's people trying to make a quick buck. They drug these kids and cut them all up, and it's just evil. And you'll have doctors telling the parents that they're going to commit suicide if they can't change their sex, which is impossible to change their sex. But if you love the child as they go along and protect their innocence, they'll never want to do such a thing. You might have a tomboy girl or a guy that gets dressed in a dress that goes away. Just tell them to go out and play; they'll be fine. And but such evil attacks the innocence of children, and even when they go to school, even good schools, they get their innocence attacked. They go, and they got all these kids around them, and they want to be liked, and all of a sudden they get made fun of, or they get bullied, or something else happens to them, or a teacher. Or they have a hard time in school with the classes, and what are they told? You better work hard. You're not working hard enough. Well, yes, it takes effort, but some kids learn differently, and then they start feeling low about themselves. They don't feel. Every child is a magnificent masterpiece of God, and our goal is to bring out their beauty for the world. Oh, this isn't realistic in the real world. They got to be tough, and they got to know how to put in a hard day's work. Well, I don't have any problem with working. I mean, we got so many people out of the workforce now. You've got to work. Work brings dignity, and yes, they can learn along the way. Kids, I'm not saying that kids can't be responsible. Teach them that. Keep the room clean. Take out the trash. Help around the house. But I'm saying let them keep their innocence. Don't get angry at children. That just is, I guess, not realistic. But when you're always angry, that also zaps their innocence. They know, oh, is my mom or dad going to be angry today? And then they get real tense. And it's just not a good situation. You should be able to sit around and laugh with your kids and enjoy them. Oh, well, we can't be friends with our kids. I'm not saying you have to can't teach right and wrong and even be firm at times. But you also have to enjoy them and enjoy them in the present moment. Don't have everything focused on the future. This is why I don't like organized sports for kids, because I think that they lose their innocence there. They're in something, they're not having fun. It's dysfunctional. You got screaming parents in the stands telling them how to play baseball. No one's having fun there. It's all about the future. It's all about a lack of self-worth on the part of the parents. Let them go play pickup games. I've been talking in a previous segment about a guy I work with. He used to work where he ran baseball leagues, and during the China virus, they didn't allow parents to be at the games. And he said the games were like totally different games. The parents weren't in the stands screaming, and the kids were actually having fun. So it's dysfunctional, and it takes away their innocence and joy of them having fun playing pickup games. Now, these were still official organized games, so they still weren't ideal, but it showed that they were more relaxed and having fun just playing the game. And as we tell you almost every episode, Yogi Berra was against organized youth sports. All he had is 10 World Series rings, and so he must have known what he was talking about. He learned to play baseball in pickup games on the hill in St. Louis, and so that's how you learn how to play anyway. You don't learn how to play. He said he'd rather have a guy bats 40 times a day than 3 times a day in a organized sports game. And but it all seems so real, and it's also about parents being able to brag and be. This travel baseball is the craziest, or travel sports. It's crazy. Parents spend good money. They got their big SUVs. They want to show those off. They stay in expensive hotels. The money would be better used with the family, staying with the family. I mean, there's all sorts of stories of parents going broke, taking their kids on travel baseball. They can't afford it. Don't do that. They don't need that. Let them play pickup games. It's just ridiculous, and it enhances their innocence, and they'll have fond memories of that. I really don't have any fond memories of playing youth organized baseball. I remember it, but I have fond memories of playing pickup games and playing a thing called Indian ball that we play hour after hour. But I didn't enjoy organized youth sports. I mean, I've said this so much. I played a thing called, it was boys baseball. It's just another form of Little League. And the league was age 10 to age 12. And every team would have one superstar player. But some 12-year-olds are more like 13 and even 14-year-olds. And some 10-year-olds are more like 8 and 9-year-olds. So you could have a 14-year-old pitching to an 8-year-old, technically. And there's no way. They're not having fun. It's ridiculous. It's a joke. And then you got all these parents in the stands and these fathers. oh, we're going to get him on our team next year, and then we can be a better team. And it's just ridiculous. They're using these kids. They're not having fun. They're taking their innocence away. They would have much more fun playing pickup games. Oh, we can't do that. They got to get them started young if they're going to have any chance. That's ridiculous. It's just totally nonsense. But they lose innocence in so many ways, and I don't even know all the ways. But there's so many ways. And again, I'm not a parental guru. I don't have all the answers. I don't have very many answers. I'm just telling you what I observe. And these kids, they're not, a lot of them aren't happy. And then they're watching their phones or they're watching TV. Let them go out and play. Tell them to go out and play outside. Yes, there need to be boundaries. They can't run wild everywhere. But let them play. Let them climb trees. Let them do other things. And let them have fun. And that's where they learn. That's where they learn who they are. Know thyself. So they're better prepared to face the world if they know themselves. They're better have a more well-adjusted adulthood if they don't have so many attacks on their innocence. There's going to be enough attacks as you grow up, but let them keep their innocence as long as possible. Let them play. Let them enjoy that small window of childhood. And that's how they find out who they are, and they go forward and hopefully have a good life and find out what gifts God has given them to use and to improve and to get along in this world. But we're all put in the same category. You got to go to school. You got to learn. You got to work hard, then you got to go to college and get a degree so you can do this job. And I'm not against it. I'm all for having people forming families. We got to do that more. We got to build the family up again. And yes, the fathers need to be able to work to support the family. And kids can be introduced to things at a young age, about the business world or other skills they might have, craftsman skills. I mean, we're going to have another future show about this. But I talked to my mechanic this week. Got a brake work done. And he told me that their elderly man who used to work there had passed away about a year ago, maybe a couple of years ago. But they're only down to 2 people. And I asked him, can you hire people? He says, you can't hire good people. And they pay them good wages. And he says there's such a shortage of employees in mechanics, in HVAC, in electricity, and electricians, and plumbers, and all the sorts of work like this, that these are fulfilling work to a lot. Not everybody can do it. I couldn't do much of that. And like I say, but some people have a real desire. I remember what place I worked, they were doing some iron work, rebar work. They were putting in this flooring, or they were building, actually it was related to a stadium, and they were putting in seats, but they had to make the concrete flooring earlier. And they did it in the wintertime, in the off-season of baseball, and it was very cold. And I talked to these guys at the end of the day, boy, you got a tough job. I go, we love it. We love doing this. So there's some work that everybody loves. And children naturally go towards what they love as far as doing that. But you can introduce them to things like that and what they might like to do. There's no perfect way of doing that. I'm not saying totally shelter them from anything, but they need to play. They need to have that window of play and awe and wonder of the world. And they can't lose their innocence, because they get to a certain point, they get depressed and all this, and they don't like the world. Or you see these little happy kids running around and having fun. It's amazing. I work at an event center, and every events I have or family gathering that I go to where there's a bunch of kids, 100% of the time, the young kids get together and start playing some sort of game, whether it's hide and seek, whether it's a makeup game, whether it's anything. There's this natural desire to play. And it's uncanny, but it's not uncanny. It's actually the way things are. That's what children do. Let them do it. Yes, they need boundaries. Yes, they need to be taught right and wrong, but it's not a shortcoming. They so need that time to play. Let them keep their innocence. Don't tell them things like, you're never going to amount to anything if you don't change your ways. Yes, there are troubled youth, but why are they troubled? They're probably troubled because they're on the wrong track with their parents earlier. And it's not easy being a parent, but let them play. Let them keep their innocence. And, you're just coddling them and letting them get off easy. What about those pioneers? Well, first of all, pioneer families were often together all day. The mother obviously stayed home and was making clothing or doing something labor intensive, and the kids worked too, but they also played. There was also a time to play. And they, even in those days with no medical care or hardly any, kids still played. It's the natural desire. I don't care if you're born in communist China or you're born down the street. A child wants to play. Let them play. And they did that in pioneer days. Now they did the grueling work. They had to keep up on the farm and the things like that. But I was also wondering, I've heard about these trips, these trails that went out west, the Santa Fe, Oregon, and California trails. And there were like 40,000 kids that went on those 2,000-mile trips, basically over rugged land that had never been crossed before, at least not by a wagon train. And how did they survive that? But there's all sorts of diaries from children. You can't imagine anything tougher. Most of the children walked the whole 2,000 miles. Some of them, and then they stayed in covered wagons, or they slept outside even. But just an example, what these kids were thinking. You think, oh, well, they lost their innocence. Well, learning that the world can be challenging is not losing your innocence necessarily. For example, Sally Hester, she was age 14 on the California trails. She began her journal March 20th, 1849, when her family left Indiana to move west for her mother's health. Her diary later, widely read for its vivid detail, captures the heartbreaking of saying the last goodbye to friends along the day-to-day grit of a 7-month journey. She famously documented her excitement at seeing massive landmarks like Chimney Rock, but also recorded the chilling sight of fresh graves left by cholera victims along the way. So yes, that's traumatic, but she was all excited about seeing Chimney Rock. And there's other stories about they see the blue skies and they see the vast openness. These kids are just so excited for that. On an adventure that would just seem impossible. They lost many people. Many people lost their parents. They talk about the chores, and they have to collect buffalo chips for cooking fuel to light or help them cook over the fire. And talk about storms they went through and their tents and how they had to wrap wet rags around the wagon wheel to keep the wood from shrinking and cracking in the desert air. I can't imagine anything tougher. But these kids seem to have a good attitude. They still somewhat have their innocence. And there's one family there of about 6-7 kids, and they lost their parents. And the 14-year-old John Sager took charge of his six younger siblings, including a newborn baby. And they successfully completed their final 500 miles of the trek on their own. And so they didn't lose their innocence. They still had a zest for life and hope. So it's not really, tough surroundings, yes. But you see the kids like in the inner city. They have no love. They have no caring for them. They don't know who their father is, or they rarely see him. Their mother's probably drugged up and doesn't care about them. So what? They need to have families, so they turn to gangs, and they lose their innocence very early. And but they're just still children. And yes, we have shootings every week in Chicago. And how does this happen? This happens because kids lose their innocence. They aren't raised by parents who care about them. And it happens in families that are stable as well, stable incomes and things like that, because there's not love expressed to the children. And I'm not saying that it's wonderful and we love you every day and all this, but the kids have to know that they're loved, and the parents should tell them that and encourage them in this world and tell them that how great they are. Oh, well, that's fake self-esteem. Well, children need to know that they're a miracle. I'd almost rather have fake self-esteem than the other way. I don't think that is fake self-esteem. But a kid totally criticized constantly will just go on a downward spiral, and it's not good. It's not. You got to be. I'm not even saying it's a fine line. Yes, you got to encourage them, and you got to keep letting them know that they're a great human being, but they can do other things. They can do this, and it's also a fine line between encouraging them in something that they find difficult and something that they shouldn't even be involved in, that they have no talent for. That's just because they can't do certain things doesn't mean they're lazy or they're not trying hard enough. Put them in an area that they're gifted in or that they're smart in. God didn't leave anybody behind. God put everybody in this world for a reason, and every child has a purpose that they're put here for. And when they lose their innocence, they lose their joy for life, and then they get confused and they don't know what directions to go. But if they're playing, they know what they want to do, and they know what directions they want to go. Again, I don't have all the answers, but I'm just saying that with young people these days, there's so many of them confused and they don't know what to do next. They go to these government schools, which are government schooling has to be phased out. I know that's not practical right now, but it's crazy. Kids learn better in one-room schoolhouses. And why is homeschooling so successful? Because the kids feel like they can be themselves. They don't have to go there and worry about peer pressure or bullying or things like this. And the homeschooling kids I've talked to, run into, they've all been really well-adjusted young people. And I'm sure there's exceptions, but the massive campus high school is just not natural, and it's not normal. And homeschooling or small schooling, education should be local, very local. And all parents want their kids to learn. I was talking to a lady last week at this event center I work at, and she was asking about various things, and they were talking about the school starting. It starts in this area, and she was an African American lady, and she was talking about her kids starting school, and the lady next to her says, "Oh, they go to the Kansas City School District." "Oh no, I wouldn't put them in there. That's I think why they moved out in the area where the schools are at least maybe a little better." And so all these parents want what's best for their kids, but these government schools, it is just, we spend so much and they get so little from it. And but they treat them all the same. And these big city schools, for the most part, are disasters. As a matter of fact, they don't want them to learn. They want them to be wards of the state, and they don't like that. And I worked with a guy once who was a school teacher in the inner city. He says, "We're just expensive babysitters. They don't learn anything." And it's just so sad. I mean, they all have, every child is like I say, a magnificent miracle of God. And they need to keep their innocence for as long as possible. They need to play. And again, just because it's a tough situation, whether you're a child going on the trails out west, you can still keep your innocence even in a tough situation. And they still played. They talked about these kids playing on these trails out west. They'd have a tough day. A lot of them wrote about the mechanical things and all the other challenges, but they'd still find time to play, and they'd see these beautiful landmarks and see all these buffalo, and they'd still have awe and wonder, even in a tough situation like going out west. So kids need to be able to keep this awe and wonder, and there's nothing. As a matter of fact, they have to have it, or they're going to decline. And so that's our main point today. Let them keep their innocence. Don't put them in situations where they lose their innocence. Now, I know government schools do that, so some people don't have a choice. But it's so crazy in a lot of families and broken families, and that these kids lose their innocence right away, and then they act out and turn to crazy things, and it's a tough situation. But let them keep their innocence. Let them be children. Let them be children for as long as possible. They don't need a head start. They don't need to compete with all these kids. Let them play, and they'll figure out. And like you say, that's how they learn who they are. And when they have self-knowledge, they'll know what direction to go. You don't have to orchestrate everything for your kids. You can hope they do the best and give them some opportunities. But overall, they'll know what direction they want to go. and encourage that. And that brings out the best in them because they're being who they're meant to be. So we thank you for joining us on Carrying Lawn Chairs, and we'll see you next time.